So the other day I was filling out one of these medical claim forms, basically a typical PDF file that has text fields and checkboxes. And I was wondering, is there a way to programmatically populate a PDF file with fields in the PDF file and save it as a new file? So I found this library called Pdflib that claims to do that. It says it can fill out forms, create new forms, or fill and read existing fields, checkboxes, and text fields. Yeah, that's what I need. So the rest of the video is going to be about that. So we have a form filler directory that I created. We're going to go ahead and create a new Node.js project. So my only requirement for this is that I have Node.js installed. I have version 16 installed of Node.js and npm version 8. So I'm going to do npm init-f to create a new Node.js project. It knows that the name should be form filler based on my directory name. And we're going to go ahead and open it in my editor. Okay, so we have this package.json file. One other thing I need to do, obviously, is to add the Pdflib library. So I'm going to go ahead and do npm install pdf-lib. When I do that, you could see that it automatically puts it in the package.json's dependencies, but I have a Pdflib here. The other thing that it needs is index.js, so let's go ahead and create that file. Index.js. Okay, and I'm just gonna paste the code, a small portion of the code, and go ahead and explain it. So the idea is simple. I'm gonna have this PDF document, and I'm gonna import read file and write file functions that come with Node. And I'm gonna have a create PDF function here that basically tries to read the file, which is my existing form, and then load that in, and then make some modifications, and then save the file, and then write the file out, PDF created, and life is good. Now, the first thing I need, obviously, is to save a medical claim form in my project. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to download it without your changes, sure. Okay, save. Okay. All right, so now we have this medical claim form PDF file right here. Wonderful. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what happens when I try to read the file in and then write the same file out. Index.js, I run the project, and it says that unfortunately PDF document load failed because the document is encrypted. So Pdflib, like other libraries out there, don't deal very well with encrypted PDFs. Now, it was kind of surprising to me that this PDF is encrypted because there's no password or anything that I had to put in, but you just have to take my word for it. It is encrypted. So that's the bad news. The good news is that it's very easy to unlock a file, even though it is encrypted. You just go to ilovepdf.com/unlock_PDF. You select your file and then do open. And then you say unlock PDF. And then you say download unlocked PDF. So So now in my project, I should have an unlocked version of this PDF. Unlock claim PDF, and it's pretty much the same thing as what I had, just now it's not encrypted. So all I have to do now is change the name of a file that I'm reading in. So instead of medical claim form, it's going to be medical claim form underscore unlocked. And let's see if that actually does it. And then my output should be output.pdf. Boom, it's created, and I have this output PDF file that got generated. So the next thing I want to do is I want to actually put this PDF file into my browser so I could easily refresh it. So as you could see, the output PDF file is what got generated. It's exactly the same file, no changes yet, which is fine. And now let's see how we could make changes to this file and eventually save a version of it that is filled out of what we need. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Command B here to open it up a little more. All right, so the first thing we could do is after we read the file, before we save the changes to it, go ahead and remove the pages, because right now I have about 6 pages in my new file, but I really only need this form, which is on 1 page. The rest of it is just other stuff, which I'm sure is important to some people, but not really to me right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove some pages. So the first page will get removed, and then the second page I need because that's my form, but that's going to become the 0 page, and then I'm going to remove a few more pages after that. So I'm removing the first page, this becomes my first page, and then I remove the rest of the pages. Let's go ahead and generate that. Run the file, create it, refresh the browser. Okay, I only have 1 page. We're making progress. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to actually modify the fields. That's really the main point of this. So the way to get at the fields in Pdflib is to say pdf-doc get form, and it automatically knows where the form is, which is nice. And then you could do get fields to get you the fields in the form. So this will be these fields, and then let's go ahead and print out those fields and see what they look like. Okay. Okay, so as you could see here, it's printing the fields. So it recognizes that the fields are there. So this is my fields array, PDF text field, PDF text field. And that's good, but how do I know what the fields are, right? So these fields here are what's being printed out, but how do I get a better handle on the fields? So what we could do is we can go ahead and get the names of the fields. So instead of fields, we could do field names, and then go ahead and say get fields, map the fields. For every field, do f.get name, like so. Let's go ahead and do this like that. Make it a little bit bigger and give myself a little more space. Okay, so we have get form, get fields, and then for every field, go ahead and get the name of it, and then print out field names. Okay. All right, that's a little better. So we have all the fields that are in this form. So we see that there are text fields and there are checkbox fields. And so really a way to fill these fields out is just to say PDF, well, let's get the form. So we could have a form, and then that would just be pdf.getForm. And then the next step is to say form.get, let's say, text field, and then specify the name of the text. Let's, for example, say text2, and then set text to be John Smith. Let's see what this does. Okay, let's refresh the form. Look at that. John Smith is in here. So that's definitely a great start. But I guess I still don't have a good handle on how to correlate what fields are here to these numbers here. I sort of just happened to guess that text2 happened to be the first field. But is there a better way to know what fields are what? So what I did was I created something like this. So basically I could see that there's about 110 or so text fields out there. So I created an array from 0, basically a range from 0 to 111 or so, 110. And then I populated the array with actual numbers from 0 to 111. And then for each one of those fields in the array, I tried to get the text field. And if such a field doesn't exist, it will throw an error, which is an exception, which is fine. But the fields that do exist, I'm going to go ahead and populate the actual text for those fields with the numbers that are going to be corresponding to that text field. So let's see how this actually works. So generate form, refresh it, and look at that. So now I actually know what each one of these fields is. So in this case, it's still John Smith because the text field number 2 gets overridden with this text. But all the other fields, I could actually see what the numbers are. And now I can go ahead and finish writing this program, which will basically get the text field and set the text of the corresponding text fields to what I need. So that's text fields. And then the other thing is the checkboxes. What do I do with checkboxes? So it turns out the checkboxes are pretty much the same thing. You do form.checkbox and then what the checkbox is. So in this case, let's say checkbox 7, for example, and you do check to check off a checkbox. So just to show you, refresh, and you could see that checkbox number 7 got checked with a nice checkbox. So that's basically it, right? So the three things we saw is that you could remove pages, you could populate text fields, and if you need to know which text fields are which, and whoever created the form didn't necessarily name them in a way that you could tell right away, you could just do this little trick to populate the fields with numbers. And then the checkboxes, it's just get checkbox, and you could have check, or if it's already checked, I think there's a method called uncheck. But at least in this case, we're populating a brand new empty form, so we would use either set text or check. That's the end of that. And then obviously you'll have to remove this part of it that just sort of scouts out what fields are what. and you could, for the rest of it, just fill in the text.